Hello, and welcome to the Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics podcast, Narcotics News, where we discuss topics related to drug enforcement, human trafficking, money laundering, and all things OBN. On episode 1, we are discussing the current state of marijuana. Good morning, and welcome to Narcotics News. Today, we're joined with Director Anderson and also a group of professionals in the field that are going to talk about our topic, current state of marijuana. Director.
Thank you, Dr. McGuire. I'd like to thank all of y'all for showing up today for our first annual podcast, one of many that we're going to be doing. We was going to do two today. This will be the only one we'll be able to get done today, but thank y'all for coming. I'd like to introduce everybody. First, to my left is our newly elected Attorney General, getting her drum. Thank you for coming, General. Sure. Our prettiest sheriff in the state of Oklahoma, and then we got a couple of them in here, but he is self-proclaimed best looking sheriff, state of Oklahoma, Sheriff Walton. Now, the real prettiest sheriff, Sheriff Johnson, Tom Johnson III, Oklahoma County.
He's good.
Chief Todd Gibson from Moore PD.
Sheriff.
Former sheriff. To my right, Commissioner Tim Tipton. And sitting next to him are OSBI Director Spurlock and our sheriff from Marshall County, Donald Young. Thank y'all for being here. I appreciate each of y'all being here. We're going to start with Attorney General. He's our newly elected Attorney General. I've had several conversations with the General even before he was elected and since he's been elected on some of the issues that we've been seeing as an agency here in Oklahoma. I'm going to turn it over to you, General. Tell us kind of what you got going on in reference to this.
Certainly. I will tell you, our law enforcement is superb across the state. Our sheriff's departments, organized statewide offices, and marijuana has, we just weren't prepared as a state when we opened that door in 2018. And I think everybody was shocked with the criminal element that followed. And where I see the role of the Attorney General's office playing is to be a force multiplier with all of you, to be there on the attorney side and supplement with our agents. And certainly on the multi-county side where we've got organized criminal element across counties to collaborate with sheriffs. And Director, your leadership's outstanding. You've been making a difference in Oklahoma, and we are all together. We have to continue to push that forward so we can have a safe and sound community.
Thank you, General. And actually, we just recently, and maybe expand on this pretty quick, we had asked your office to come with us. And probably one of the most deplorable things that we deal with in this whole industry it's starting to be exposed a lot more now is the sex industry. The sex trafficking that's going on. And it's one of the most deplorable things that we deal with on this thing. And if you just think about it, it doesn't matter where a person's from. It really doesn't. But to treat another human being this way is just unconscionable. And it's just hard to believe that we're allowing, it's not that we're allowing, it's that we brought something in that brought something like that with it. And the magnitude of it is unbelievable what we're dealing with. We recently did a search warrant and your agency came to help with us. And I think it probably went over and prosecuted it, honestly.
Right. I think we will.
And it was one of several that we've done recently, and it is in reference to sex trafficking. Well, tell us what you think and what you're seeing already with your short time here.
So what I'm observing is, we've got the international criminal element that comes in to provide, they've constructed a distribution network throughout the state and out of the state now, clearly. I-40, I-35, and then the other ancillary roads. And they've got this criminal element here, and now they're feeding that fire with human trafficking, right? So they've got the slave labor to help in their manufacturing of marijuana and fentanyl and other drugs. And then they've now brought in foreign nationals as prostitutes, sex trafficking. So it's almost like a little... like China has picked up and moved over into Oklahoma is what I'm seeing. It's abhorrent, and we've got to put a stop to it.
Absolutely. Sheriff Walton, tell us what you're dealing with in your county, in your jurisdiction.
You look at it, we see too, and I don't think we'll see anything that everybody else here doesn't see, but, kind of two levels at it. And I think there's a misconception there of, the age of the hippie and the pothead and, low THC content weed or whatever. But, man, we see a product here genetically engineered, so potent, which, if you have a conversation with an old pot pothead, they'll explain to you the difference in then and now or whatever. But I refer to it often as as a experiment with a generation, and now we're pushing out genetically engineered product here that is dangerous. The edibles, I think probably one of the most unreported situations we see is the overdoses with children. When we talk about, you want to tie drug endangered children right into the level of sex trafficking. Here's to people that are, female prostitution, small children. They're being forced into a life of pure hell. That the only benefactors to that are, the organized crime industry that this brings. So, we see a level that, as law enforcement, I think the only thing we're exposed to that everybody else knows, we just see it at a level that most won't. But I always like to tell people when we book a female into jail, if we dump her purse out here, the possessions that she has on her person, or the pockets of a guy that comes into our jail, and you're going to see signs of marijuana, which I'll swear to my death is the biggest gateway drug that ever happened. A piece of cellophane that's got white residue on it, half of a Xanax pill, and signs of some other things. So there's a buffet, and they're drinking too. There's a buffet of chemicals that person uses probably on a daily basis. And that's what you and your family are meeting going down the road. So it's a hazard in every way. But the fact that we go back to a state now that has the loosest, most liberal drug laws that are certainly taking the teeth out of the dog when we talk about law enforcement. We're writing tickets for what we used to send people to the penitentiary for. And I know that might go against the grain with what incarceration rates are too high or whatever. I don't know. We just focus on career criminals and putting the bad guys in jail. The problems, goes beyond that, but we've got our hands full doing just that. But I look at, a clandestine industry that's alive and well in Oklahoma. And it came at a time that we didn't need extra work.
Yeah, you said two things that's really interesting to me, Sheriff. And one, I'll come back to you, Commissioner, to talk about on what you're seeing as far as your accidents that you're seeing on the highways. And another one is when you're talking about who is actually going to prison. And a lot of people don't realize this. The type of people that we work are people who are very well, or when I'm talking about cases, they're very well organized criminal syndicates. They come from various countries, from Mexico to China to Russia to Bulgaria, all over the world, come to Oklahoma to infiltrate and to expose our medical marijuana laws. So we're not, and I don't want to take this wrong. I don't care who's smoking marijuana. That's not what I do. Has nothing to do with what we do. We are absolutely working cases on very well organized criminal organizations, and also people who have very close ties to terroristic countries and communistic countries. And it has now become what is known as a national security threat to the United States. What is going on here in Oklahoma? So for someone to think that we're working all these cases on someone that is smoking marijuana, we're not. And also, whenever I talk about this, I'm talking about those type of people, because we actually have people in this industry that are legitimate people. People come from all walks of life that are in this business. Unfortunately, those people are not who I get to deal with. I go visit with them people, and those people actually come and talk to me. That's not who I get to deal with. I deal with the real criminal organizations, from cartels, like I said, to Chinese organized crime, to triads, to Russian mob. Just every organized crime around the world has come here to expose our medical marijuana industry. So that's very interesting you said that, and I just want to kind of touch on that, because some people say, "Oh my God, we're demonizing marijuana," or "I'm not that guy. I'm just a public safety guy." just like the rest of y'all are. And there's none of us running around here dealing cases with people that are smoking marijuana. I haven't seen it.
You're absolutely right.
Sheriff Tommy Johnson, you have the largest county in the state of Oklahoma. I'm curious as to what you've been seeing since you've been here.
I will tell you, obviously, I-40 and 35 present us with a huge feat when we talk about interdiction. It's something touched on, Attorney General, when we talk about the amount of marijuana we are taking off of the roadways that people come here to Oklahoma to purchase to then take across other state lines or to bring in. And it really tarnishes the legal industry that's going on, and it's really brought a level of violence with it. I mean, I think that's something no one can ignore. And I won't get on the topic because I want OHP director to speak on it. But the level of, crashes are up, fatality crashes that have a lot of bodily injury. They are up. And then, for me, I think the big thing is there's no way to quantify how high someone is. And I think that would be really, necessary when we talk about advancing this industry even further into our state. So I think there's things that
Absolutely. And you as well brought up some very interesting things, talking about the interdiction. Because a lot of people don't understand what you're talking about. When you talk about interdiction, your interdictors are out here working these major highways. They're looking for people who are smuggling narcotics into the state and out of the state. So 99% of the people that they're dealing with are really bad people. And if you stop and think about how much marijuana we have in the state of Oklahoma, whenever I came to the Bureau to be 3 years in April, I think we were up around 12,000 grows, somewhere around there, over 10,000, right? So last year we knocked that down to 8,300. This year we're sitting around 6,200 by this enforcement action for the last 3 years. That's how much we're taking this down. We've identified approximately 3,000 more grows that we think are operating on the black market, putting everything out into the other states. So if you stop and think about how much we're producing, we are actually supplying the rest of the United States. We have put other syndicates out of the business because of what we're doing here in Oklahoma. And you think about how many dispensaries we have in the state of Oklahoma. We have over 2,000 dispensaries in the state of Oklahoma. We have a little over 900 pharmacies. And we dispense millions of prescription meds every day through these pharmacies. You have a town of 3,000 that has one pharmacy and usually could supply two towns of its size, but you have 4 dispensaries. Those numbers, listen, guys, I'm from Oklahoma. I'm from Wynnewood, Oklahoma. Not no mathematician. And I don't build rockets, but like I tell people, you don't have to be to figure this out. Those numbers just don't add up. That is not staying here in the state of Oklahoma. And all this money that we're saying we're making, we're not making that money. That's not taxed money. None of it is. So we're not making that money. So very interesting you said that. Chief Gibson, more Oklahoma. What are you seeing there?
Well, and I think first off, I want to start by absolutely agreeing with the General's comments when he opened up. I think we have a great person running the Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics right now, and yourself. And I'm very thankful for the role that OBN is playing in leading the charge in combating some of these terrible criminal elements that we have operating in the state of Oklahoma. And being a lifelong Oklahoman myself and a lifelong law enforcement officer, I am just appalled. It's unfathomable to me to believe that Chinese organized crime, that Mexican cartels are operating right here in my home state, and there's a portion of our state that's okay with it, or at least oblivious or turns a blind eye to it. It's appalling. We should all, as Oklahomans, be standing up saying, hey, this is unacceptable. And I appreciate what you're doing, what your agents are doing, and the partnerships that you're building across the state to combat that. Now, when we look at it from a localized level, we see many of the same things that agencies across the state are seeing. As you well know, we have tight partnerships with OBN, and we also deal in interdiction and other aspects of enforcement. But locally, we have seen everything from homicides to assaults to robberies. We just got into a pretty multifaceted vehicle pursuit just a couple of days ago in reference to a marijuana dispensary burglary. The property crimes, the personal crimes that are occurring from this at a localized level are just going through the roof, and it is a consequence, or it is a symptom of an overall larger problem. When you have these international criminal elements operating in your state, we're absolutely going to see it. And we have seen this as small as neighborhood associations, homeowners associations, complaining about certain homes that are being paid for in cash and operated in a quiet, residential, even gated neighborhood. No one is immune from this. Everyone is being affected from this. And the lack of insight, the lack of foresight that we exercised in allowing 788 to be passed and not having a plan is absolutely paying a cost. And the sheer propaganda that is being spread, and I won't even call it propaganda, I'll call it out lies that are being spread about law enforcement support of recreational marijuana in general, hurts us as a society, hurts us as a community. And here's where I'll tell you that it hurts us. Yes, we talk about crimes, but oftentimes I am being asked, our community service unit is being asked to give talks to young kids about gateway drugs in general, and specifically marijuana. They just did a recent sweep at Moore High School, extremely large high school, and you wouldn't believe the number of vapes. And what they're doing is they're putting liquid form of THC and marijuana into these vapes. And I've told these community groups, I've told these parents, yeah, we're not going to talk about it. Well, what do you mean you're not going to talk to our kids about the dangers of marijuana? Well, why would they listen to a police officer getting up there talking about the dangers of marijuana when they drive by 10 billboards before they even get to school to tell them how it's the miracle drug going to solve all their problems? How are we going to get up there and say anything that's going to change the mind of a young person whenever we are being combated through the media, through special interest groups across the state who are pushing a narrative that is absolutely false and absolutely wrong and doing nothing but lining the pockets of individuals and criminal enterprises? So I appreciate this podcast. I appreciate this company that we're with today, because something has to give. And law enforcement is working hard each and every day from a local level to a county level and state level to do something about it. But sometimes it's difficult.
Director Rock, comment on a couple of those. So you mentioned the propaganda is funded from out of state. It's dollars. It's other people coming in and exploiting Oklahoma is one. And two, I have spent most of the last 7 weeks talking to legislators, and I want to encourage everybody on the podcast and everybody here, visit with your legislator. These men and women are putting Oklahoma first and genuinely want to do the right thing, but they are getting bombarded, as politicians do, from left and right, from honest and non-honest brokers. And we need to give them, one, we need to be united as law enforcement. Two, we need to have one voice with our legislators to help give them not just a complaint, but a solution. And I think what we'll see in this legislative session is some excellent legislation that couples OBN with the Attorney General's office to supplement what OMMA, the Medical Marijuana Authority, is doing to give us more enforcement ability, and then building up task force, strike forces inside the statewide agencies to supplement law enforcement in the cities and the counties. We have to take this seriously.
And I would like to say one quick thing, Chief, and I agree with you wholeheartedly on everything you said. We have actually identified, when you're talking about the vapes, in every drug known to mankind has been adulterated with fentanyl. We have actually identified our first vape, THC vape, that was adulterated with fentanyl. So that's going to be something that is really concerning, and that's why we have to educate the public. Because if you're buying something on the black market, the likelihood of it being adulterated with fentanyl and being the last thing you ever take in your life is high. We actually have more people. You're more likely to die from a fatal drug overdose in the state of Oklahoma than to be killed by a car wreck or a gunshot. But we're wanting to outlaw guns and decriminalize drugs. It makes no sense to me. And that's not just being the public safety guy, but I'm serious. You're more likely to die from a fatal drug overdose. But those will go through the roof as we start seeing those THC cartridges being adulterated with fentanyl.
And I know this is not a fentanyl conversation, and fentanyl absolutely is a whole other topic of problems with, and the amount of Narcan that we're pushing on a routine basis is unbelievable. But would you agree that if I'm a consumer of marijuana, it is difficult for me to understand, even if I think I'm buying it from a legitimate buyer, whether that's black market marijuana or legitimate marijuana?
Oh, no, absolutely. But that goes with absolutely every drug that has been adulterated. No one thinks they're getting fentanyl. They think they're really getting an Oxycontin, a Xanax, or whatever the drug is that they're getting, even methamphetamine, even cocaine. That's what they think they're getting. And they don't plan on that being the last thing they ever take. But that's exactly what's happening. Now that is going to, I think we're going to see that just go through the roof on the THC cartridges. You have to be aware, if you're going to do that, where you're getting that. That's what I got to say about it. I mean, you know, regardless of what the drug is. I mean, you just better know where you're getting that drug, because the likelihood of it being adulterated with fentanyl is more likely than not. So that's one of the main important things I want to get out there. But absolutely, Chief, people don't know what they're getting into. Sheriff Yow, thank you for joining us. Tell us kind of what you're seeing down in Marshall County, down by the lake.
Well, and I appreciate being able to be up here amongst everybody talking about this. Marshall County is kind of unique. We have 4 major highways that converge in one town, and then it kind of spreads out, and you can go anywhere in the state from there. We're right on the border, so we have a lot of roads in our area that we tend to track a lot, just because if they're heading towards Texas, of course we can't stop them if we don't get probable cause until they enter Texas. But we work with our Texas partners pretty well on that and tell them, hey, here's what we think. If you get an opportunity, get them shut down. So that friendship helps a lot. But just in Marshall County, I agree with everything I'm hearing about what marijuana has done. We face those same things in our county, one of the smallest counties. And I'll give you an example. I do a DARE program for 5th grade. And in that, we talk about the effects of alcohol and tobacco on the body. And I have 5th graders asking me in class, well, if marijuana is so bad, why is it legal? And I try to answer that with, smoking is, and a lot of times, sometimes kids will tell me my parents do this. And they're looking for a reason, some kind of reason why their parents are doing that. And I look at them and I tell them, it's all about smoking. We learn it's not good for you. And it's kind of the same effects. But I try not to go down that road of, just because you use that doesn't make you a bad person, And I'm interested to see what that's going to do. I'm fixing to do a program for some younger kids, and I bet that same question gets asked in there. And another aspect that I haven't heard mentioned is the mental health problem this causes also. You get some of these kids and even some adults, they do things, they use weed as a substitute for medicine at times. And when they get locked up for something, they get into jail and they can't act right. So we have to segregate at that time, and it causes mental health issues. But I think all these things, I don't know. It's a problem throughout the state, and I often ask myself, how did we in Oklahoma get to this point? Whenever you have so many grows in Oklahoma, I think the last number I heard was 8,000, something like that.
We're around 62 right now.
And California has, or 800.
A whole lot less than us.
Yeah.
So we have 4 million people. They have 40 million people.
Yeah. So, I mean, you have to stop and ask yourself, how did we get to this point?
Sheriff, you said something that is and you're right. The mental health aspect we haven't talked about yet, but that I think we ought to bring some people in who are experts on it and talk about it. But I will tell you this, because a lot of people don't know this, that marijuana is a psychoactive drug.
Yeah.
So if you have an underlying mental health problem, you may not even know you have a mental health problem, but the likelihood of that rearing its ugly head when you smoke or when you ingest a psychoactive drug is likely. Now, the mythology of the reefer madness, if people smoke marijuana, everybody goes crazy. Absolutely not true. That was propaganda itself. But the truth is, if you do have an underlying mental health problem, because marijuana is a psychoactive drug, it can cause that to come to fruition and expose that mental health issue. Another problem is our youth are smoking marijuana.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to produce even a dumber generation of boys than we already are, because we know that our frontal lobe isn't developed until we're like 26. And if we can even survive that long, that says one thing, right?
Yeah.
But whenever you do something like smoke marijuana, that actually does irreversible damage. So we will produce so I feel sorry for the girls in the future. They think y'all think we're done. Going to see a dumber generation in the future. I mean, that's fact. That's science behind that.
And I don't know if anybody else faces this or not, but I get a lot of calls about our grows. And I think
I do. I get a lot.
I think the one thing that limits us as sheriffs is having to go through all the red tape to verify that this grow is legal.
We're going to help you out. I think we've got good legislation coming through that's
awesome.
going to open the door to let OBN and OAG enforcement multiply.
Because there's times that, and citizens at times, or our constituents, they don't understand that if we just go in and, yes, we think this is illegal, but if we get in there and all of a sudden, here's a piece of paper saying they are, our taxpayers are going to have to pay for that.
Well, when we talk about illegal growth, what a lot of people think is that these people don't have a license. They do. On face value, all these people are legitimate.
Yeah.
So you got to prove that they're putting a product out of the state or on the black market. Yeah. And that's what you are. Now, there is some legislation that he's talking about that is pretty neat legislation that if it comes to fruition will be pretty good.
And so I think that's a topic that needs to be touched on more, because I think that's where people lose it.
It is.
The difference between illegal
Yes.
and how they mask it.
So our laws are written very liberal. I mean, regardless of what anyone says, we have recreational marijuana right now. If you have gas, you can smoke marijuana. You can get a card to smoke marijuana. Flat out. It's not a prescription. It's another thing. People think that a doctor's prescribing it. That's not what's happening. So we're as liberal as we're going to be. It can't be any more liberal, regardless of what happens. This is the most liberal it can be. We're more liberal than Amsterdam. Go figure that. And we're one of the reddest states in the nation. So we're liberal.
We're looking pretty green right now.
Yeah, well, yeah. Good point. We're very green, but it is. We do have some of the most liberal laws there are. So
If I can tab out, I got to go speak to more leaders, so I'm going to run out of here.
Well, the main one's you.
I know, but I'm going to have to tell them I was with their leader.
Thank you. We had to pause for just a moment. Gettner, the Drummond, our AG, had to sneak out for a little bit. We're going to continue on our topic, and I want to, if you don't mind, skip you because I want to come back to you last and talk about some of the stuff that you're doing. Well, it is important. Some of the stuff that you're doing is very important. And some of the things that you're seeing is very important, and I want us to be able to talk about it as a group. But Commissioner Tipton, I want you to talk about a few things because I know that you've seen changes in what's going on our highways, everything from accidents to even what your troopers are coming in contact with. So if you don't mind, expand on that a little bit. If you
Sure. Yeah. Of course, DPS, Highway Patrol, our main focus is highway, roadway safety, public safety in those areas. I actually just this morning got the 2021 finalized data from the Highway Safety Office on fatalities and causation and things like that. We're always way behind on that data. So it's 2022 is going to show a whole lot more movement in this. But just in 2021, significant increase in fatality collisions. In 2019, we had 640. And in 2021, we had 762 fatality collisions. The thing that was the most interesting to me is that DUI or just alcohol-related fatalities decreased in 2021. So the increase was significant from drug, DUID. And of course, a majority of that, we used to see a lot of DUID mainly in the prescription opioid from doctors. Well, that's pretty well been done away with. Now it's going to be, but now the marijuana issue is what's definitely made those numbers increase. But you generally don't see drug-related causation outpace alcohol-related causation, and it did in 2021. So, of course, the public safety standpoint from that is huge, and just what that caused everybody. Another significant increase was in fatality collisions with pedestrians. The highest number we've ever had in the history of Oklahoma was in 2021.
Fun intended. Us.
Yeah. And exactly what is the cause of that? Well, when you're seeing that increase in DUID or marijuana caused fatality collisions, and then the pedestrian fatalities going through the roof is significant. So I look at it from the public safety and motoring public safety standpoint. And then the other way that we at DPS and OHP look at it is from operational cost. I see, the tax revenue generated from the marijuana industry and things like that. I don't think the normal citizen understands the amount of man hours that it takes now just to deal with the marijuana industry. You and I have had a lot of great partnerships this past year and joint operations. I think of the one joint operation that we did where it was a number of illegal grows that we had to go on all at the same time. Just the planning and execution of that. I don't know how many thousands of man hours. I actually have that data where I could put a dollar amount to it. It would be incredible the amount of money, citizens, taxpayer money that we spent on just that operation, much less the DUIs and all the other operational costs of it.
It's very interesting you brought that up because I do have that.
Yeah.
It costs me between $10,000 and $15,000 a day to do those operations. So
Right.
that one day that you're talking about, just for the day, I'm not talking about all the investigation up to it, the year that it took to
Yes.
do all that, that's probably
And the
another
pre-planning
$100,000.
and yes.
And that's not accounting in salaries and all that kind of stuff. I'm just talking about that day for that operation to take place cost my agency between $10,000 and $15,000.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about money, your man hours that it's taking you, because whenever you talk about DUI, typically whenever, say it's alcohol related, there's a test you give them versus what are you doing if you think it's DUI drugs, for example, marijuana.
Right.
What's the difference in what it takes for a trooper to process?
To be able to prove that case and have that probable cause is much more difficult due to the inability to have that qualitative and quantitative testing that we have for alcohol, which has been standardized over the years. But it absolutely is going to take much deeper of an investigation and articulation and much more work on the prosecutor's part to be successful in the prosecution of that. And the DUIs I was talking about are just the fatalities. So these are murder and manslaughter charges, which turns into a whole nother being able to prove that, besides just a normal, I say common, everyday DUID that we see every day. So no doubt those are up, the DUIDs. The other thing that Sheriff Johnson was talking about, the interdiction, the criminal interdiction part of it. We have, of course, interdictor teams around the state on our highway and interstate system that OBN and OHP partner on. The strange thing is every morning when I wake up, I open my phone and I read all the emails from the events that happened the night before. Generally, drug interdictions, criminal interdictions are part of those criminal interdiction teams. Now it's everyday normal troopers out working their evening shift or their night shift that are coming into contact with, either somebody who's intoxicated or somebody who's hauling large quantities. And now this used to be quantities that we all got excited about. Back when I was a trooper working the road, if I saw that amount of, that was a once every few months, once every few years that you would get that size of a load. And now it's a nightly occurrence for just normal troopers working in the Oklahoma City and Tulsa metro area of stopping trafficking size loads of marijuana, which is another drain on, they're not out there able to do their normal traffic duties. Then they're then having to deal with the whole criminal element of that. The other thing that I look at is over the years, the interdiction and the criminal interdiction of Mexican cartel, we learn over the years kind of what their game was and the dangers of it. And it's super dangerous, as you all know. Now you've added a whole new mix of organized crime that have a whole even different set of standards, I guess, when you start putting in, whether it be Chinese organized crime, Russian organized crime. This is a whole nother level of criminal conduct and dangerousness that it brings to the normal trooper, deputy, or police officer that's out there working. So it's something that's always on our mind, and learning their techniques and what level of crime are they willing to commit to not get caught, and how dangerous that is. We run the kind of state SWAT team, right? We're the team that supports all the agencies that don't have the ability to have their own SWAT team, like a lot of them do in the metro areas. And we're busy. It used to be that we were busy helping them serve, warrants on other types of crimes, and now it seems like most of it is all related to the marijuana industry that's come to Oklahoma. And so dealing with that again is a drain on limited state resources that we've got to put forward to be able to do those things. So I don't, Fusion, Homeland Security, back when fusions were started, the focus was on international terrorism and domestic terrorism and critical infrastructure, waterways, electrical grids, those types of things. Now even this U.S. Department of Homeland Security, 1 and 2 on the list is cybersecurity and transnational organized crime. When you hear that word, I've always thought of that, well, that's in Chicago or LA or New York. We're now the hub. We are the main transnational organized crime hub here in Oklahoma. And again, I don't think normal citizens understand the level of organized crime that the marijuana industry has brought to Oklahoma, and the drain that it brings on just normal policing agencies.
And you're right. And here's the deal, and not to go all the way back to Chief Gibson, but when he was talking about, you are appalled with what's going on. I don't think our average citizen realizes what's going on. I really don't, because we are in Oklahoma, and regardless of what's going on and what's passed or what isn't passed, because I go all over the state, and people are so shocked whenever I talk to them about this. I mean, they have no idea. They literally have no idea. And for example, you talk about partners. I'm very fortunate because everyone in here is a partner to me in some way, and I'm very fortunate for that. But you go back to the summer, last August, when we worked with 23 other states,
right,
to do a month of interdiction and emphasis. Oklahoma, our interdiction teams that we partnered together did seized more drugs than any other state. And Arizona, which is a border state.
Yeah.
So if that doesn't tell you what's going on in Oklahoma, nothing will. Yeah. But that was shocking even to us. And it wasn't because we were just all out there, and we were working it, don't get me wrong, but so was everyone else, because this was a friendly competition across the United States that the governors from 26 states put together. Myself and Commissioner Tipton, some of his guys went out to Arizona and worked with them putting this together. But we had no idea that Oklahoma was going to be the one that seized more drugs and make more felony arrests than any other state. And look at our population. It should not be that way. So that was a good point. Thank you for bringing that up.
I think what was so enlightening about what Commissioner Tipton just hit on was there's oftentimes a top of the fold headline of here's the tax revenue, here's the money benefit to the state of Oklahoma. And it's not an accurate number. It's kind of like going over your pay stub and looking at the gross versus the net, right? And there is a financial cost to this that really we could go all the way from the officer out on the street to the medical provider, hospital systems, educational systems, court systems, and really get an accurate figure. And I would speculate, and I haven't done the data on it, and I haven't seen it. I'm not from Wynnewood, but I'm from Norman. But I can't imagine that doesn't take a significant chunk out of the net of what we actually think any benefit we're getting as a state. But above and beyond that, when we talk about the rise in fatalities and the impact on families and lives, there's an emotional and a societal impact that I don't care how much money you think you're making, the impact that you're making on people's lives in Oklahoma is not worth the price.
And it's multi-generational. We're going to see this for generations. whenever none of us are blessed to be here any longer, there will be people left behind that this will impact. Our grandkids' kids. I mean, that's the generation that's going to be dealing with this for many, many years. And you're absolutely right. Lastly, Director Spurlock, and I know you may be new to the position, but you're not new to the Bureau. You're not new to Oklahoma. You've been investigating violent crimes for a very long time. You're very astute about what's going on in Oklahoma. But since and you can even go back before you become the director of OSBI, but since you have been there, there's been things that's been very publicized. I know we can't get into in-depth about investigations, but even for you, and you've been in this business for 30 years, what have you seen, if anything, that's even different since we've been dealing with this?
Now, a couple of things that I've already heard all of you all mention, and obviously I don't disagree with anything we've already discussed, but there's a couple that kind of stand out to me. One is, we've all hit on the need for educating the public, or our thoughts that the average citizen does not really understand what we're dealing with. And I think there's an absolute misconception for those outside of this profession, where you say it's legal or there's regulations, that there's somehow that diminishes the violence associated with it, and it absolutely does not. In my 30 years of doing this, especially with the Bureau, drug activity was secondary to the primary crime we were there for, the violence we were there for. Often, played a part in some poor decisions or other things like that. I think what I have seen most recently, certainly since being the director and partnering with you on some larger cases, is that the marijuana industry that grows the dispensaries has created its own level of violence relating to the foreign nationals coming in, the syndicates and the types of crimes you already talked about. But this is absolutely some of the more heinous crimes that we work. And for OSBI, major crimes and felonies like this is our bread and butter. But I think we have also had to partner with you all more. That's been critical in addressing it, because the drugs is the focus of the violence. That makes a lot of sense, but it definitely has shifted our focus and how we manage things. And I think not unique to us, but gives us a little bit different perspective, is we're statewide. And so all of our agents that are working the violence live in the communities that are affected by it. And so you guys have all hit on, what it's like and the challenge it brings teaching our children. Just the cost impact to these smaller communities where they're establishing these grows and businesses, just the drain to the water, to the health, to the electricity. These are small communities that are severely impacted, and our folks are living amongst it. And we really, because drugs in general are not OSBI's primary focus, it's a particular challenge for us to make sure that we are community partners, law enforcement partners, partnering with you all at the right time and place to make sure that we're having an impact. I know the general mentioned some legislation you and I have talked about that would kind of expand our role in that. And I think it's absolutely going to take every single person at the table to have an impact on what we are seeing and what I anticipate, like Commissioner Chipton said, is going to continue to grow.
Absolutely. And I am fortunate because everyone here, with so many people that aren't here, because I only fit so many people in here, but are great partners to me and to the Bureau. We absolutely couldn't do this stuff without all of you all. And I really am appreciative to each and every one of you. Violent crimes. You talked about how everything kind of revolves around drugs. That's what people don't realize. We can totally decriminalize drugs. We can make every drug known to mankind free and clear, no crime whatsoever. But it doesn't mean the other crimes don't happen. They're going to. So does that mean we decriminalize homicide? No, we're not going to. But our problem really is drugs. We are a recreational society. If you really look at why we're even in an epidemic, it's because we are a recreational society. People start recreational, whether it's alcohol, whether it's smoking marijuana, whether it's taking a Xanax. It's recreational. And then you become addicted. Another myth. You can't be addicted to marijuana. Not true. You can be addicted to anything. So it's your personality. So it doesn't matter what it is, you can be addicted to it. So the root of it simply is drugs. It really is. And if you look, even at my age, we're the largest drug enforcement agency in the state. That's it. Whenever I came into the Bureau 3 years ago, we had 60 people. That's all we had. When I say 60 people, I'm talking about administration down. So you can take another 40 of those where you're working cases. No one was working marijuana. Now we're up around, because of our partnerships, we TFOs and all that kind of stuff, we're up around 130. But still, you have 130 people working thousands and thousands of drug cases. A lot of people say, well, what is DEA? DEA is a very good partner to me, but they're one of the smallest federal agencies in the United States, have a very small footprint in the U.S., and have an even smaller footprint in the state of Oklahoma. If we're not doing it and we're not partners doing this, no one else can do it. So the partnerships is very important, and I thank you all for being great partners. We'll open it up just real quick for some roundtable, just some general discussion. Does anyone got anything they want to talk
I
about?
was going to mention also, and it slips my mind about human trafficking. I mean, literally, in Oklahoma, we're the agency that applies all the CMV federal standards, FMCSA standards. So we got, our largest troop, actual single troop, is our size and weights division. Well, now I've had to take our size and weights division, and rather than just focus on CMV safety, now I've got to train them in human trafficking, because that is where, both due to the southern border and now due to the transnational organized crime part of it. So now our normal trooper who's out stopping a semi to make sure their brakes and all their safety equipment is in place and their log books and all that. Well, now they've got to do an investigation on human trafficking as well. So we took the model. The state of Ohio kind of set the standard in the CMV world on human trafficking. So we've taken their standard and implemented it. And just last week, the zone commander over that division briefed me that we've met that standard now. So we're trained to the level that as high as anybody in the country is when it comes to that. But we're also the place where the biggest majority of that human trafficking is moving into. Again, used to be Chicago or LA or New York, and now we're the hub for that as well.
A lot of people have a misconception about human trafficking. Human trafficking gets commingled with labor trafficking and sex trafficking and all the other trafficking. So by statute, it really doesn't matter. And it is all different. And human smuggling, a lot of people think that is actually human trafficking, but it all is different. But people lump it all into the same thing. So we have to abide by the statutes that we enforce. So a lot of what is going on is people are being smuggled into the United States, whether it's through the southern border or on a shipping container coming in through New York, because a lot of our agents, that is how they're coming in, through shipping containers through our ports. They are also being smuggled across the south border. Anything and everything can be smuggled across the border, period. Doesn't matter what it is. And whether it's a weapon of mass destruction or appeal, it doesn't matter. That's primarily the point where it comes to. But the human trafficking, the sex trafficking, the labor trafficking, we didn't even really talk about labor trafficking because people, once again, kind of lump that into the human trafficking, but it's different. Because these people, when you come to these locations, they just like anyone who operates any business, any good business, especially on the agricultural side. And Sheriff, you're down in agricultural county.
Yep.
When you show up to a farmer's property, that property is pristine. That farmer gets mad whenever someone drops the wire off the hay out in the field because it tears up his equipment. But when you go to these places, they're easy to point out. So it looks like a third world country. There's raw sewage running out on the ground, some stuff you're talking about that's going on with water and electric. But this is what's happening. That's going out onto our ground. There's chemicals that's being dumped. Some of these chemicals are smuggled to the United States just like people are. There are chemicals not even approved to be used in the United States. That's going on this product that people are ingesting. That's something else that we haven't even talked about.
Yeah.
That is going to cause problems down the road. Now, listen, we were lied to for over 100 years about tobacco. Big tobacco lied to us, big pharma lied to us. We know that. It took us 100 years to say that smoking tobacco will kill you. took 100 years. It was first marketed as an asthma medication. And whenever I go give presentations, I show that. And I actually show one of the original cigarette packages, how it was packaged and how it was displayed and marketed for asthma medication. Now, there's no one in their right mind today who's going to say that a cigarette's going to help your asthmatic condition. But that's one of the things that's got to stop on both sides of all the line. Be truthful about it. Let people make up their minds how they want to deal with this. But this is not going away. This is something that each and every one of us is going to deal with on a daily basis. And as you said, working together is how we figure this out. And I think we do, eventually, we are going to have to come together as a group, and we're going to have to sit down with our legislators, because they have been very good to us on both sides of the Senate and the House working with us. But I think as our partners, we got to come together, sit down with them, and figure this thing out. And because we are the generations that we're going to put out, it's going to affect deeply, and we're going to be paying for it for many, many years.
And I think another thing that's important is that we really have to be adaptable. This changes daily and how they go about what they do. For us, we respond to a robbery that's turned into a homicide, and we work that. And then what we find is now we have labor trafficking, human trafficking, sex trafficking, the money laundering that all spider off into other issues that we have to investigate. And so those are not typical crimes for us. I doubt they are for you all. And so just making sure that we adapt to the changing needs of the job to make sure we're best focusing on it. I know one of the ones you referred to recently, we visit with those individuals that are witness to the atrocities of it, and they're not being paid. The grow makes the money before these people are even taken care of. So we have real human issues that we've got to learn to adapt with while we're doing all the law enforcement. So I think it's just an additional challenge to an already significant problem.
Absolutely. And that's the labor trafficking aspect of it that we have to deal with. But it's like I said, it's not going away. It's something we're going to deal with from now on. Sheriff Johnson, you don't have as much rule as say as the other two sheriffs, but you have massive grows inside structures.
Yes.
And you also have people who are converting THC to, it's done under pressure and it's done with propane, butane. Have you seen anything? Because we have seen some down in southeastern Oklahoma that's actually caught on fire and exploded. Have you seen anything in Oklahoma County that you know of? I know a couple of years ago there was one in Jones.
It's where they're making the what they call it, the oil or the
wax.
The wax.
Yeah.
And then they use that to get the potent THC, get that from the plant, and it just blows things up. Like I said, I believe that was the last one I've seen that I can recall. I think our county is really transforming because everywhere in the county that was rural to a point, or even unincorporated areas of the county, and even in Deer Creek where it's unincorporated, all of that is starting to blossom, and people are starting to build, and you're starting to see a whole lot of subdivisions be created in these places. But we still have marijuana grows, like I said, in these areas, in large complexes. And how do you get a hold of it, or how you wrangle it in? I'm unsure. I think these partnerships is where we get the most bang for our buck, because it's going to take a group to be able to do this, because one agency is not going to be able to do it.
No, you're absolutely right. And like I said, I appreciate all y'all's partnership on this. And Chief Gibson, same thing. You have been very supportive with manpower and anything else that's ever needed, and just being a big support to the Bureau. So we always appreciate you as well. And Sheriff Walton too. Thank you. Thank you for everything that you've always done, and just you taking the time to drive from Rogers County down here today. I know it wasn't just for the donuts.
Maybe it was. Thanks, bro. It is. It's been helpful.
Well, thank you all. Does anyone have anything you want to?
I appreciate the partnership. And I do think we're the last line of defense for our citizens out here. That we gotta start standing up for this stuff.
Yeah.
We have the value there. I think we none of us here have the resources to do what is expected for us to do. If we don't look at every spoke in the wheel, we're missing something big. And I think, as you and I were talking about before this ever started, we've done a poor job of educating the people that we serve. So maybe this is the start of educational concept of it. And to get that message out there.
Absolutely. We'll do this more often. Sheriff Josh, you got anything you want to add?
No, I just want to thank this group. I want to thank putting this together because I've learned a lot here today, seeing what we do from our different bureaus, from their perspective. Obviously, in small rural counties and then in municipalities, just to see how everybody's doing things, how everybody's combating this issue. I think the one thing that you kind of take a little relief in is that everyone's dealing with the issue. So it's not just unique to your area. So you have people to bounce things off of.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here, Sheriff. Chief Gibson.
No, I just again would say that I'm thankful to have you in your position doing the job that you're doing with the Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics. I think we should, as a state, be appalled that we are now the hub of transnational crime, and the fact that we have international organized crime operating in the state of Oklahoma. Something's got to give, and I think to the sheriff's point, we are on the front lines, and to your point as well, we do have to do a better job of educating the people we serve on the significant problems that it's bringing.
Thank you, Chief. Sheriff, yeah.
Oh, I like Sheriff Johnson. I learned a lot listening to everybody today, and again, it's not unique to just one place. It's all over the state. I thank you for the partnerships that we have. I think we're fortunate to get to have that, and of course, I'll always say, if y'all need our help from Southern Oklahoma, we're always there. So anytime y'all need us, we're there.
Thank you, Sheriff, and all the sheriffs in Oklahoma have been great partners to me. I mean, the sheriffs, whenever we go do these deals, usually I have the sheriffs and Commissioner Tipton's group, because it takes, you're talking about 500 or more people to do these operations whenever we're doing them on this massive. And it really is just quite the undertaking. But we couldn't do it without you, so thank you for your partnerships. Director?
Again, I like what everybody else has said. I appreciate the opportunity to have this kind of a forum. It's nice to know you're not on an island by yourself trying to tackle this across the state. And so I look forward to the continued partnerships and hopefully some real success in tackling this big issue.
Well, thank you too, Director, because since you came in, you have been a great partner. I mean, you not just with me, I mean with people, and we all talk. But thank you, because it really is a breath of fresh air when we all can kind of come together and work towards the same goal, all rowing in the same direction. But you've been a great director. We love having you. Look forward to the future success with you and OSBI as well. Commissioner Tiffany?
Yeah, I'd say the same thing, that, a lot of times it takes a crisis to make us work together and create force multipliers. And so probably the good side of this is it's doing that. On the state side, I think we're in a unique position between the three of us and a couple of others that in my 35 years, I've not seen our agencies working quite as well as they do in this. So I believe we're in a crisis in Oklahoma with the marijuana industry, but hopefully the outcome will be that at the state, the municipal, and the county level, it'll just help us work closer together like it's doing.
Absolutely, and you're absolutely right. I don't know that I've ever seen us all work like this. But it's us. It takes each one of us, because every one of us are leaders from our own perspectives. But if you take one of us out, it messes up the whole thing. But if that comes back to us, at least we have to work. We have to come together and figure this thing out. But we were doing this even before we had the problem. We started working together. But you've all been good partners to me. I appreciate you all. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Billy.